you think of hacking in Minecraft, something like bee-hopping probably comes to mind. Or, if you want to be slightly less obvious, slight reach and anti-knockback. But what most people don't realise is that the world of hacking goes way deeper than anyone could have originally thought. For years, there have been groups of hackers who are primarily snipers, targeting the best players in the community for recognition and social status. The general public may fear them, but what most people don't know is that there was once someone who the snipers feared themselves. Through climbing his way to the top and becoming the most famous sniper ever, he left behind a legacy that won't be forgotten for a long time. How was he able to climb his way to the top? What made him different from everyone that came before him? How did he get so many enemies? Why does no one remember the good things he did? Will anyone ever be comparable to Reza? Reza joined the Minecraft Hypixel community around mid-2018. At this point, Minecraft had been falling off since 2015, so the activeness of this community was at an all-time low, and relatively there weren't that many people around. However, even with this in mind, no one really knew who he was. He wasn't special, just your average everyday player. Eventually he became interested in grinding and was dedicated to leveling up in bedwars as fast as possible. This coincided with getting high win streaks and going for record stats in final KDR and win-loss ratio. He was successful, often ending up with win streaks in the hundreds, and on his main account with only 5 final deaths, he had an FKDR of over 1,300. But Reza didn't play legit. He was a hacker. Through grinding and achieving these accomplishments, he had started to make a name for himself, and many people knew that he cheated, and at one point he held the world record for highest cheated solo win streak. This wasn't surprising. A lot of high level and top tier players are known for using hacked clients. This was around the time when ghost clients weren't really a thing, so you either didn't hack or did blatantly. Reza had also gone into sniping, where he would target others with similarly high win streaks by getting into the same game as them, then hacking and killing them, resulting in a loss of their win streak. This is what many people will say was his claim to fame. There were loads of hackers in the community, as with any other game, so seeing one wasn't anything special. So with that being said, why was Reza different? Well, honestly, he was just really good at it. Reza was extremely dedicated to sniping, and there wasn't much that anyone could say to him to get him to back down. Although there was some natural talent involved, it wasn't the sole reason for why he was so good. Reza had connections. Even if you've never hacked in Minecraft, you probably know that you need a lot of accounts to be consistent, especially if you're blatant because it's only a certain amount of time before you get banned. These accounts cost money, and although they used to be dirt cheap, buying a lot of them would eventually add up. This wasn't a concern with Reza, as he was friends with the owners of numerous Minecraft alt shops. Because of this, he was able to acquire hundreds of accounts, and at one point he said he had around 400. However, they weren't just handed to him completely for free. He got these accounts in exchange for a couple of things. Reza would run ban checks on accounts that could potentially be sold on these sites, found exploits, and also did combo checks. Here he would run a software to check if an account login and password combination was correct. This was the first sign that Reza had some special abilities that went beyond just being good at Minecraft. The amount of sniping he was able to do was previously unheard of. Even people that hated him for what he did would suck up to him and try to stay on his good side, in efforts of saving their win streak or stats and not getting targeted. Some of his most notable snipes being Jynx with a 1400 FKDR and Pronounce with a 1300 FKDR. He was a scary figure in the community. No one knew much about him apart from that he was really good at sniping. Once he was set on a snipe, he was always able to complete it and was pretty much the top dog. He eventually joined kcals, one of Minecraft's largest and most notorious sniping groups. The members had a lot in common with Reza. They liked to snipe the good players. For them it was fun. The bigger the win streak you could snipe, the more respect you'd get, and it would also elevate your status within the group. kcals ran an operation where they wouldn't leave certain people alone until they paid real money to be put onto a safe list. There are 3 tiers to the safe list, with the higher tiers granting more protection but also being more expensive. Countering the safe list was a blacklist, where more high-profile targets would be put onto with a low chance of being allowed access to the safe list. Reza would code tracking bots on certain players, specifically so it'd be easier to snipe them. This is before the Hypixel API was publicly available, which nowadays makes it a lot easier to do this. So, not only was Reza a skilled sniper, he was also a talented coder. Alongside this, he gave out ults to many members of kcals so they would be able to snipe more too. Unsurprisingly, Reza thrived here. With his connections and skill, it wasn't long before he was promoted to co-owner. By then, he had become extremely well known, and was probably the most identifiable sniper in the community. He was also known to be a serial doxer, being able to obtain personal information on anyone he wanted, such as their real name, school, address, etc. This made people more scared of and less likely to confront him. Every win streaker, cheater, and sniper knew who he was. If you were on a good win streak and it got sniped, it was probably Reza. Many people hated him. Unless you were his friend or a fellow sniper he had helped, you had no reason to like him, as all he did was just try and snipe as many people as he could and ruin their fun. A lot of resentment had grown towards him, and alongside this came jealousy from those who weren't as good as him. Unbeknownst at the time, this would eventually lead to his downfall. During this time, Reza was still dedicated to grinding stats in bedwars. He, alongside some of his friends, were the owners of the famous account IQ. The whole aim of this account was to get the highest stats possible and essentially just be the best. And they excelled. They did cheat on the account, but for over a year, this account was considered to be the best one ever made. IQ had the best FKDR and win-loss ratio of all time, and also a win streak of over 1000. Most of the other top stats accounts hacked as well, but it was still really impressive. Unfortunately, the success eventually came to an end. The first final death the account took was to a random cheater who hadn't even been trying to snipe them. Luckily, this didn't affect FKDR, as dividing anything by 1 is still the same. Later down the line, IQ took another final death, resulting in the loss of the number 1 FKDR. This time, they had been deliberately sniped by xylans. Xylans hasn't been mentioned so far, but don't let that fool you. They were prominent, if not more prominent than kcals. As a sniping group themselves, xylans operated similarly to them, if not more ruthlessly. There was a rivalry between the groups for some time, but xylans wasn't nearly as focused on the rest of kcals as they were on Reza. Some would say that the main reason they disliked him is because of how good he was at sniping, arguably better than their whole group combined. Xylans had wanted to be the best at sniping and be in control of everything, including sniping and ownership of the best stats accounts. Reza being in the picture made this really hard for them, and he would be in their eyes for a long time. At a certain point, Reza looked back on his experiences and everything he had done and accomplished while in the community. He was a top sniper. Everyone knew who he was. He could get as many accounts as he wanted, and no one could really do anything to stop him. Basically, it was every sniper's wet dream. But not Reza's. He felt bad. He had done a lot of harm and came to regret many of the snipes and doxes he did. And what happens next has been forgotten about by a large proportion of the community. While on a 1000 plus win streak on IQ, Reza had the idea for what eventually would become Antisniper, an overlay for Minecraft that is dedicated to prevent sniping as much as possible and make it easier for good players to get higher win streaks. Reza didn't have much involvement in it apart from the ideas behind it, and originally it had just been made for his friend group. Months later after the initial idea, it was picked up by Keathiz and made public, and this was supported by Reza. Antisniper is branded as a bot-based solution to sniping. Through the use of 20 bots that continuously queue games across all core game modes of bedwars, they gather information on multiple players and also identify possible snipers that requeue at high rates in hopes of getting into a game with a player that they're targeting. Before Antisniper was a thing, Reza had worked with BoomZa on a similar overlay called Bedwars Stats. He had a lot of involvement, he helped develop it, was providing resources to BoomZa whenever they were needed, and the aim of this overlay was very similar to Antisniper. It was to stop sniping. Bedwars Stats was used as a base for Antisniper, and since its release, the average high win streak has increased from 100 plus to 600 plus. Before Antisniper, you just had to guess if there was a sniper in your game, and now it's a lot easier to tell. This stopped many snipers from going from mid-tier win streaks, as at that point, it was too much effort for what the payoff would be, and this wouldn't have happened without Reza. Reza also ran a Discord server that was dedicated to giving Minecraft accounts to people, and you may think this was so people could get sniping ults more easily, but his aim was just to help people who couldn't afford accounts or just didn't have the means to get one. He just wanted to help people play Minecraft for the fun of it. He didn't care if it was for vanilla survival or tryharding on whatever server was popular at the time. He was just trying to give back to the community. It probably was used by some cheaters, but undeniably benefited those that just wanted to play Minecraft normally and have fun. And Reza did regret his past in sniping, but that didn't mean he had stopped. Reza continued sniping, but only went for people on high win streaks that were cheating themselves. He had set out to destroy what he once was. Using his reputation, he was able to protect win streaks of people that played without hacks, mainly done by putting them on the kcals safe list that people would normally have to pay for. This safe list forbid anyone in kcals from sniping whoever was on it, and hence provided a decent amount of protection. And if he was open about protecting a win streak, that in itself is probably enough to off-put some possible snipers. He did still have the reputation of being a doxer after all, even if he didn't associate with it anymore. One of the most notable win streaks he protected was the Bombies win streak. This was set with Bombies in her squad, consisting of Luvonox, Dogcat and Wolf, and it grew to over 1,100. This is probably one of the most high-profile win streaks of all time, and eventually did get sniped. For a while it was a mystery who did it. No one in the community could identify the sniper account, Baby Keem, and even those suspected didn't come forward and admit it, even though it probably would have gotten them some clout. Reza was able to look into the logs of the Antisniper overlay and found out that the account that had sniped Bombies had bypassed the sniper flag up by only queuing twice a day. Through looking at the name history of the account and finding a phone number, kcals were able to get the username and password of this account. Through Reza's connections, he was able to cross-reference this through a list of alts and find the shop the account was bought from, contact the shop owner, and find out who the account was sold to. However, this didn't work out as he had planned, as the shop was owned by one of the only sellers that Reza didn't know. Luckily, the sniper who got Bombi's win streak tripped up by posting some screenshots of another snipe that would be later linked back to the Bombi snipe, as Reza further used the Antisniper overlay to find out it was the well-known leaderboard player and YouTuber Keathiz, who was the #1 player in Korea at the time. Keathiz had been exposed. He was able to join kcals and continue sniping for them, but his reputation took a big hit and eventually he left the community. However, no matter how much Reza tried to make up for the past, forgiveness couldn't be given by everyone. He was still strongly disliked by xylans, and here, having the reputation as a doxer was actually quite useful to him. Like I mentioned earlier, Reza was also known for doxing, but it's been wildly misinterpreted. It is true that Reza would obtain personal information, but he would only ever use it to threaten people. Given the nature of the community he was in, and him being a high-profile member with people that wanted to ruin his career, Reza had to be able to defend himself. He was actually strongly against doxing, and hated seeing personal information on others get leaked. xylans even repeatedly doxed his girlfriend at one point in an effort to get to him. But if Reza was known to also dox people, it would make them less scared of him and less likely to bother him. All his doxes ever were empty threats. He could get as much information on someone as he wanted, but he would never release it, and wasn't that kind of person. But this was only able to protect him for so long. Many people actually knew that Reza was relatively harmless. He recognised that Minecraft was just a game, and taking action outside it wasn't necessary. But that didn't stop people saying he deserved what eventually happened to him. August 19th, 2021. xylans' long hatred for Reza had finally caught up to him, and the true ruthless nature was shown when they doxed him, giving out his personal information for anyone to see. xylans had found an old account of Reza's that had been deleted, and Reza thought it had been wiped from everywhere. By talking to numerous people in the bedwars community, xylans was able to find a Discord account which the Minecraft account was linked to. One person they talked to mentioned that the Minecraft account name had been changed to something else, which I won't say because it kinda has some personal information, so I'll call it Fig. While talking to Reza's ex, xylans also found that the name Fig was related to the name of a robotics team that Reza was part of. When looking up this team, they found pictures that were identical to the Discord profile picture of the linked account. Reza's ex also gave them his Spotify, which had his full name on it, and his followers were people he knew in real life. They looked up one of the people and found a video from the same robotics convention, to which someone with Reza's first name had commented. When they went to his YouTube channel, they found that the account was subscribed not only to the robotics convention, but also to Reza. This was enough to confirm that they were the same person. The nail in the coffin for Reza was when xylans found an article about the convention where Reza had actually won, and it contained pictures of his face and the city he lived in. For most players, some random people finding your face and full name online might not be a big deal, but for Reza, it was huge. The video containing his dox has almost 30,000 views, miles ahead of anything else on the xylans channel. Once people knew what he looked like, they realised he was just a regular guy, and there wasn't much to be scared of. Any power Reza once had just vanished. Many people said he had it coming because he doxed others, but most of them don't realise that he didn't do it in the way they had thought. Everything that was revealed about Reza kind of made sense. Many people in the community knew him as intelligent. He was a great coder, so it's no surprise that he was really smart in real life. Reza had won awards for his works in robotics. He had also created a thermoelectric cooler in order to develop a cheaper CPU that would run as fast as an expensive one while being kept cooler. And Reza was said to be one of the only people who ever did this. Reza also stated that his next project was to build a solar-powered autonomous lawnmower. Yeah. Reza realised that after he got doxed, trying to help the community was a mistake. He had tried his hardest to make up for his wrongdoings, but it wasn't enough. He left the community, and there wasn't much reason for him to stay anyway. Reza had achieved everything he had wanted to. He was well known and had broken records. Not many people were close to Reza, so it was really easy for them to get the wrong idea of him, especially considering what he was most known for. Salazar's Revenge, one of the most famous bedwars win streakers with numerous 1000 plus win streaks, had this to say. He would snipe me here and there. I eventually met him through some mutual friends, and my experience with him was always positive. He was a very nice person, never really swore, and was interesting to talk to. He wasn't the big bad lion that everyone made him seem. Even though it's been months since he left, the people that disliked him are still around. Although they're currently not as active in sniping anymore, xylans do have a lot of control in the area. However, Reza's old friend group still owns some of the best Hypixel accounts. IQ has been sniped twice by xylans, even after Reza left, so although it doesn't have the best stats anymore, it's still in the top 10. Reza's friends are also owners of the account Secret, the current best account with an FKDR of over 12,000 and a win-loss ratio of over 3,000. Reza being a purely bad person with no good intent is an exaggeration, likely spread by those that didn't know him well or those that didn't like him. He is remembered as a scary guy, but many people have forgotten how he gave back to the community after he changed his ways, and how his efforts are still hugely helpful to many players today. Did he do bad things? Yeah. As the biggest sniper in history, that's undoubtable, but did he redeem himself with what he did near the end of his career in the community? Well, that's for you to decide. It's important to remember him for what he did, the good and the bad. Thanks for watching. If you have any opinions, then make sure to leave them in the comments below. It'll be interesting to see what everyone thinks. Do you think Reza will ever return? And if so, would that be a good thing?